Hello and welcome to Lessons in Equality. This topic is brought to you by the History of Education professor, Dr. Lillian Poats. This is a podcast where we will be digging into education, history, and justice, hopefully without putting you to sleep. I'm your host, A. Camille Brown, pre-EDD, and today, we're about to get real. The title, Still Separate, Still Unequal, Continuing Struggles for Equality of Education Opportunity. It's a mouthful, but trust me, it matters more than ever. So grab your tea, your coffee, or your grading pen or pencil, and let's talk about what's really going on in our schools. Now let's get down to business. What do we mean by equal education opportunity? Let's start with a question. What would schools look like if every child had a truly equal shot? Not just the same rules, but the same resources. Teachers who see their potential, classrooms that reflect their culture, and support systems that meet their needs. Educational equality isn't about giving every student the same thing. It's about giving every student what they need to succeed. Big difference, right? Let's pretend. Picture Marcus and Olivia, two kids who are in the same grade who live in the same state. Marcus lives in a neighborhood with a Whole Foods, a community pool, and a school that just installed a robotics lab. Olivia, her block has three liquor stores, no green space, and a school that has to hold a bake sale just to buy copy paper. They are the same age, they live in the same country, but they have very different opportunities. This is not a rare case. It's baked into our system. Equality doesn't mean everyone gets the same, it just means everyone gets what they need. How would you define equal education opportunity? Part two, back to Brown and beyond. So let's rewind. 1954, Brown versus Board of Education. Segregation declared unconstitutional. This is one of my favorite court rulings, as of course Thurgood Marshall, he was the one who argued the landmark case before the Supreme Court. At the time, he was NAACP's chief legal counsel and argued for the plaintiffs, challenging the constitutionality of segregated public schools. The Supreme Court ultimately ruled in favor of the plaintiffs, declaring separate but equal unconstitutional. But reality check, what came next? White flight, creative zoning. Fast forward, and schools in many cities are just as segregated today as they were in the 60s, some even more so. The most famous quote from the Supreme Court's 1954 decision in Brown versus Board of Education is, "We conclude that in the field of public education, the doctrine of separate but equal has no place. Separate educational facilities are inherently unequal." This quote, delivered by Chief Justice Earl Warren, declared that racial segregation in public schools was unconstitutional, overturning the separate but equal doctrine established in Plessy versus Ferguson in 1896. Here's a quick story. A grandmom tells her granddaughter, "I marched for desegregation in 1960. Now you're going to a school just like mine, but only with Wi-Fi." History doesn't repeat, it just remixes. Part three, the money game. Let's talk dollars, because where you live often determines the quality of your child's education. Why? Property taxes. Let's do a game show. Welcome to Fun That School. Today we've got Jefferson Prep, home of the 3D printers, rooftop garden, and salad bars, and Lincoln High, where students BYOC bring their own chalk. So here's the thing. We say we value every child, but the budget tells a different story. It'd be funny if it wasn't true. but most school funding comes from local property taxes. Wealthy neighborhoods means fancy schools. Under-resourced communities often stuck with the leftovers. Do we value every child? That's the money game. And guess who loses most? Part 4, intersections matter. Now imagine being a student of color in a low income district. You might face stricter discipline, fewer gifted programs, and teachers who don't reflect your background. Add in a disability or learning English as a second language, now the barriers multiply. And guess what? These kids aren't failing. The system is failing them. Let me introduce you to Jose. He's learning English, navigating ADHD, and sharing a one-bedroom apartment with 4 siblings. His teacher thinks he's disengaged, but really, Jose's juggling 3 worlds, one at home, one at school, and one in his head. Equality means understanding that kids like Jose don't need discipline, they need support. Gloria Ladson Billings' concept of education debt refers to the cumulative long-term impact of systematic inequalities and inequalities that have led to disparities in education opportunities and outcomes for students of color. It's a framework that emphasizes the historical, economic, socio-political, and moral debts owed to these students and communities. Part 5, policies that promise, but sometimes just don't deliver. Let's talk about testing. You remember No Child Left Behind, lots of promises, lots of pressure, and oh yeah, lots of tests. And its younger cousin, ESSA. Big promises, bigger tests. Some kids got support, others got left behind in a cloud of multiple choice questions. Miss Johnson, a passionate 4th grade teacher, wanted to teach poetry, Black history, life skills. Instead, she's teaching bubble filling. Miss Johnson didn't become a teacher to prep for state assessments. She came to teach, like really teach. And then there's school choice, charter schools, vouchers. Some win and others lose. It depends on who you ask and where you live. Some families have more options than ever, while others watch their neighborhood schools dry up. There's tension here. Freedoms to choose versus the collective good. It's not an easy answer, but it is a conversation worth having. Are you having this conversation? Are you attending your school board meetings? Part 6, let's talk now. Remember 2020? The pandemic hit and suddenly equity got real. 2 siblings, same family. One has a laptop in a quiet room, the other's doing math on a phone, next to a microwave with little cousins climbing on her back. Some kids had Zoom school, others had Zoom survival. And then the uprisings, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor. Students are leading protests, demanding an inclusive curriculum, culturally responsive teaching. They weren't waiting for permission, they were pushing for change. A prominent youth led education initiative, UNICEF's Youth Led Action Initiative, aims to empower young people to act and drive positive changes in their communities and globally. This initiative amplifies young voices and leadership, positioning them as an active change agent in various fields, including education. This is one youth led education initiative that came out of 2020. Children taking responsibility and leading their own future. What do you think about that? Part 7, where do we go from here? So, what now? If you're still listening to this, you probably care. You might be a teacher, a student, a policymaker, or someone who just wants to do better. So, here's what I'll leave you with. Equity isn't a box to check, it's a lens to wear. Challenge the systems, not just the symptoms. Be the educator or the advocate you wish you had. Picture this: a young teacher starts a diverse book club in her classroom. She shares stories by Angie Thomas, known for her debut novel, The Hate You Give. She shares stories about Jason Reynolds, a celebrated author known for his poetry and fiction. She shares stories from Jacqueline Woodson, who is a young A and children's author who wrote stories, novels like Brown Girl Dreaming and Red at the Bone, as well as author Nick Brooks. Who is a critically acclaimed author of The Promise Boys, an award winning filmmaker from DC, who we actually had the pleasure of reading in Dr. Poats' class. Students who never raised their hands are now leading discussions. Sometimes the revolution starts with just a bookshelf. So here is your challenge. What's one thing you can do this week to widen the path for a student behind you? I'll wait. Well, you've made it to the end with me. That's it for this episode of Lessons in Equity. Remember, equality isn't a moment, it's a movement, and the fight is far from over. I'm A. Camille Brown, pre EDD. Thanks for listening to Lessons in Equity. Thanks for rocking with me, and I'll see you in class or on the front lines. Don't forget to subscribe, share with a colleague, and leave a review if this made you think. Until next time, keep pushing, keep learning, keep leading.